St. Philip's, happy Tuesday.
Good morning.
Good to be back with you again today. A lot of things going on this week. It was a busy week. I was actually just rolling through the calendar for this week and next week. A lot of things
We're
happening,
moving
John.
and shaking.
Yeah.
We've got small groups, leaders meeting on Wednesday night. So leaders, you're going to get an invitation from me for a Zoom meeting at 6:30, our regular same bat time, same bat channel. And then small group participants, you're going to be getting an email from your leaders some point there at the rest of this week, inviting you to a meeting of your choosing of when you've scheduled to meet and work through our next lesson on Zephaniah. And coming up next week, pub theology, Cinco de Mayo. Props to anyone who comes onto the Zoom with a sombrero, a margarita, or a Corona. I will find a way to reward you for steering into the secular celebration of the day.
There you go. It's also Taco Tuesday, so you should have tacos.
Look at that. We're just wonderful.
And if you can get Corona beer,
Yeah,
I guess it's still out there.
it must be.
Celebrate Corona beer instead of coronavirus.
Yeah.
So, and then I have a study starting this week. If you are interested in it, you're going to have to contact me at this point so I can slate you into one of the three groups. It's going to be a program entitled In the Meantime, talking about what happens with our faith during times of crisis. Does it grow? Is it hurt? Is it challenged? Is it all those things? So that'll start on Wednesday morning, Wednesday night, Thursday morning. 3 sessions of that. So, and that'll run for 6 weeks. 6 weeks. So,
Awesome.
You ready?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
So, keeping with the theme of going for a deeper dive into the lessons from the previous week, we're going to talk about our New Testament reading from 1 Peter. So, for those of you who want to read along with us, we're in 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 17 to 23. So, if you invoke as Father the one who judges all people impartially according to their deeds, live in reverent fear during the time of your exile. You know that you were ransomed from the futile ways inherited from your ancestors, not with perishable things like silver or gold, but with the precious blood of Christ, like that of a lamb without defect or blemish. He was destined before the foundation of the world, but was revealed at the end of the ages for your sake. Through him you have come to trust in God, who raised him from the dead and gave him glory, so that your faith and hope are set on God. Now that you have purified your souls by your obedience to the truth, so that you have genuine mutual love, love one another deeply from the heart. You have been born anew, not of perishable but of imperishable seed, through the living and enduring word of God.
So if you remember from last week, we did the verses prior to this in 1 Peter, where he quotes Psalm 16, and we were talking about how in 1 Peter, the people that the letter is addressed to are being exhorted to live as people of this new Christian faith instead of the life that they had lived before. And many of them had been either Jews that had kind of become Christians or were Gentiles who had become Christians. And so they had been living in these places with this life for some time. But now they're being kind of encouraged to live differently, to live being guided by their faith, rather than by the mores of society and the things that they normally would have found valuable, important, and all of that. So, couple interesting things. Some of Luther's writings draw from this. You know that you were ransomed from your futile ways, from your ancestors, not with perishable things like silver or gold, but with the precious blood of Christ, like that of a lamb without defect or blemish. I think that is from Luther's explanation of the second article of the Apostles' Creed. I'm pretty sure.
Don't look at me for that.
It sounds very much like Luther. However, the thing that jumped out at me in this was that very first verse If you invoke as Father the one who judges all people impartially according to their deeds, he says, live in reverent fear during the time of your exile. And I thought it was really interesting the way that um, the author is drawing on imagery of either the Exodus
Mm.
from slavery in Egypt, or drawing on imagery of the people of Israel in exile during the Babylonian, Persian exile, Assyrian exile, whichever part they went out on. Um, but he draws on this language of exile and exodus, this imagery of being away from your home and in a place where you are not comfortable, uncertain, in their case, nomadic, a place that's not going to be permanent. It doesn't have permanence or security, um, but is away from the things that you are familiar with. And he's exhorting them, if you are people of the faith, you know, live in reverent fear, and that doesn't mean terror of God.
No.
That means revering and keeping holy God during your time of exile. And I think that's just a great, great theme to hang on to, particularly in times like this where, we do feel in exile again, and kind of that call to kind of hold on to our faith. I really liked.
Yeah, the phrase that stuck out to me was actually those very same verses, but the word "your" in there. That it's not just it's a collective feeling of being in exile, of having to, to borrow a metaphor, leave your bags, before you go on your trip, of leaving the cultural baggage of what you've known as Jew or Gentile to go into this new Christian thing. But there's that corporate piece, but there's also the individual of, we're kind of, as a society right now, corporately living an exile of being unable to go into work, to see family, to see friends, to be exiled from social interaction. We're feeling that as a society, but we're also feeling that very intimately as family units,
Yeah.
as people.
Yeah. And that idea of being separated, whether willingly or unwillingly, they continue with that image in this passage. You know that you were ransomed. You were ransomed from your futile ways, so the things that you used to do that never really worked anyway. You've been ransomed, not with perishable things like silver or gold, but with the precious blood of Christ, like that of a lamb without defect or blemish. And that should really stick out to us right now as well, because nothing that we have done up until now has been able to isolate us from what we're doing, what we're dealing with, and what we're struggling with. This coronavirus doesn't discriminate based on wealth, so the silver and gold piece doesn't discriminate on based on kind of whether you live in a nice house or an apartment.
Yeah.
Everybody, as John, as you indicated, there's a corporate part to this exile, and yet can we still see our salvation bought by Christ's blood? And I think that's really important to be able to because that's I think where our faith intersects with what's going on.
Yeah, there is that restoration piece, that resurrection piece. I think can't go understated in this. And that piece of genuine mutual love, of that you have genuine mutual love for one another deeply from the heart. At least for me in all of this, I'm finding that my appreciation, my love, my connection to people is so very different. It's not transactional of somebody, did the task that I asked them to do, or you know, Emma put her dishes in the dishwasher and not the sink, and I love that. It's very much just loving people for being alive, because we exist together. I'm finding that sense that my connection to people is deepened just because they are. And I think that's the beautiful part of the resurrection, where we get past all of the stuff that changes our relationships, that navigates them, of whether we like someone more today or less the next day. It just gets us to that sense of, I love you because you're you and you're a person, and that's what God intended from the minute
Yeah.
the world started moving.
Yeah. We're less needing to consider right now, do I need this person? Do I need to be nice to this person right now? Because the reality is we are all in this together. It was interesting to me because you made me think, John. Yesterday I was just calling around the people. I've been trying to hit as many people in the congregation as I can. It's a daunting task. There's a lot of pages left that I haven't gotten to. But I was talking with one of our members, and she said to me, we made the comment on our phone call, we'll all be changed after this. And she says, well, I hope so. And I said, really? And she says, yeah, I hope we're more compassionate and more caring and more concerned for one another. And I think what she's saying is a little bit what you were saying, John, just the connection that we have to people, this love, this mutual love one another deeply from the heart, which I think is the core of what First Peter is writing about ultimately. Kind of moving to a place of loving, and I think that's where it gets to. But I think that's what she was talking about too, whether we would move. And of course, me with my cynicism, I'm like, yeah, I'm not so sure about that. But, we definitely do get a glimpse in this time, right? I mean, people trying to be concerned, the face mask thing is not so much about whether I get sick, it's about keeping other people from being sick. And we're kind of in this day where in public places you've got to start wearing face masks now in Delaware, and that's a concern that goes beyond kind of the rugged individualism, that we normally live with. So it gets us past kind of a social Darwinism way of looking at the world. So there you go. But hope that helps you. Hope that you can take that with you today. That notion of living in exile and living in mutual love and loving one another deeply from the heart, and that ransomed by Jesus.
Yeah.
So hang on to that today. We'll see you in our studies. We'll see you tomorrow, and blessings.
Take care.
Bye-bye.